For greater things have yet to come, and greater things are still to be done in this city.
We're going to Genesis chapter 39. Verse 1. And actually, let me just talk about background with Joseph. It was Joseph, he was sold by his brothers to these slave traders. And so then verse 1 starts with him being brought to Egypt. It says, "Now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, had bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands." And I just wanted to highlight here, it says that his master saw that the Lord was with him. Take note of that. And it says, verse 4, it says, "So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him, and he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had, in house and field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and because of him, he had no concern about anything but the food he ate. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance, and after a time his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, 'Lie with me.' But he refused and said to his master's wife, 'Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?'" And so it goes on to say that, she kept after him again and again, trying to get him to sleep with her. And then it comes to the point where verse 12, or actually verse 11, "But one day when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was there in the house, she caught him by his garment, saying, 'Lie with me.' But he left his garment in her hand and fled and got out of the house." And so basically then, she tells a lie, and she tells her husband, Potiphar, and says, "Oh, he came in to sleep with me, and it was really, she was the one who was going after him. And so, but because of this lie, he got thrown in prison." And let's go down to verse 21. Let's go to verse 20, and it says, "And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him steadfast love, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed." And so, I wanted to focus on the favor of God. In verse 3 it says, "The Lord was with him." In verse 4 it said that he found favor in his sight, which was Potiphar. And he saw that the Lord was with him. When the Lord is with you, people will know, people will see. And because the Lord is with you, you will have favor with God. And that favor then comes out that where you'll have favor with man. Because it says, the second time here in this chapter, he had favor with Potiphar, of course, until he got thrown in prison. But then when he got put into prison, what did it say? Verse 21 said, but the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. So this favor with God gives you favor with whoever it is that you're working for and whoever it is that you're involved, that you're dealing with. It says because in here he was given favor with the keeper of the prison. So then he was put in charge by the keeper of the prison. I mean, in Potiphar's house, he was put in charge over his whole household because he had favor with God. But now in the prison, he got put in charge of the whole prison because he had favor with God and favor with whoever was over him. So it shows you that as long, no matter where you are, if you're following hard after God and you're doing what you're supposed to do according to the Lord, He will give you favor. And it says the Lord is with him. So then the Lord will be with you. And because the Lord is with you, you will have favor with man. No matter what situation that you're in. If you know that the Lord is with you, I mean, what does that say? What does that say? To know that the Lord is with you, nothing is impossible for you, right? Because you have God with your side, and nothing is impossible with God. And you have that nothing is impossible, God, but at your back. He's got your back. In every area of your whole life. When you know that God is with you, you should know that nothing will be impossible because you have God with you, the God of the impossible. It's like, even though he was put in prison and it was all, in the natural, it wasn't necessarily a good thing. It was first of all being thrown in a pit by his brothers because they didn't like him, and then being sold into slavery by them. All that, then being thrown into prison because of being falsely accused. None of that is necessarily good in the natural, but God had plans for him, despite the circumstances. And it just shows you that even in these negative circumstances, when you have God with you, God will turn things around, and things will work out. You have favor with him that will then give you favor with man. And can you imagine him being thrown in prison but here with Joseph, I mean, he was put in charge over all the other prisoners. It should say something that despite being in that negative circumstance, you are still blessed. You're still blessed. It's just true. You have to make sure you have that attitude, the right attitude. Because if Joseph didn't have a good attitude in all that situation, when he got first put in slavery, and all he ever did was grumble and complain. How can my brothers do this to me? Look, look at the situation that I'm in. It's all because of my brothers, and having anger and hatred and bitterness. Do you think God would have blessed him in that position that he was with Potiphar? First of all, no, he would not. Who knows what situation he would have been in? He was, in regards to Potiphar being in charge, I'm sure, he was above all the other servants in the house. I'm sure he was treated very well. But can you imagine if he complained and grumbled and just, constantly just had a really, really bad attitude? He probably having to serve Potiphar probably would not have been pleasant. As pleasant as it can be, being someone's slave. But when you have a bad attitude, all it does is just make things worse. Same thing with the prison. it's, we have to be very careful in always making sure that we have a good heart attitude, no matter what the circumstance we're in. Because, for sure, Joseph would not have been, he would not have been given the positions that he'd been given in each of those situations. Because then when it goes on to talk about Joseph in the story, in chapter 40, when he's in prison, he at some point, because I'm not going to read all of it, but he interprets two people's dreams that were in the prison with him. And then like I think it was 2 years after that one person got released, one of the guys he interpreted a dream for he told him that he was going to be released, and he told that person, remember me when you get out of prison, remember me. But he actually forgot. But 2 years later, he all of a sudden he remembered when he found out when Pharaoh was having these dreams. This guy from prison remembered Joseph in the prison, and he tells Pharaoh, I remember there was this guy, he interpreted my dream and it came true. So then, because of that, then he got released. And he interpreted Pharaoh's dream for him. And because the Lord was with him, and he had favor with man, because of favor with God, Pharaoh then made him second in command only to Pharaoh. So you have Pharaoh, the head of the whole Egyptian nation, and right under Pharaoh was Joseph. Can you imagine where Joseph might be if he didn't have the heart attitude that he had during all of that time, from being Potiphar's servant, then being in prison, and then now, the Lord lifted him up, gave him favor with Pharaoh, and Pharaoh made him second in command. And let's go to Philippians 2:14 to 2:16, verses 14 and 16. Do all things without grumbling or disputing, that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God, without blemish in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast to the word of life, so that in the day of Christ I may be proud that I did not run in vain or labor in vain. And then Colossians 3, verse 17. And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Do not do anything with grumbling or complaining, so that you will be blameless before God. And always you need to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing it for the Lord. That's what Joseph did. Joseph was a perfect example of these two scriptures. And because of that, he had great favor. And he was made second in command to Pharaoh. And because of that, God was able to use him also to save everyone in Egypt and all outside of Egypt and his family because of what he did, the dream that he interpreted for the Pharaoh, and he gave him advice on what to do to save a portion of their grain and the crops during the 7 years of plenty, because the dream foretold of a drought of 7 years, a famine of 7 years, and because of Joseph, he was able to advise the Pharaoh to put aside a certain amount of their crops during those 7 years of plenty, so that way then they'll have food during those times, during the 7 years of famine. And because of that, people from all over came to Egypt to buy grain. And it is because of Joseph. And Joseph had a horrible, bad attitude. There's no way God could have used him and put him in that position. And who knows what would have happened to Egypt and to everyone else that was affected by the famine. Before I end it, let me just share with you a testimony that I heard a couple weeks ago from our home church in Tampa, and it was this guy. He was testifying that he admitted that he had not been faithful in tithing to the Lord, and he made a decision. He made a decision to be consistent, to finally obey the Lord and do it consistently on a consistent basis to honor the Lord with his tithe. And he had a lawn business, and he said that he had been borrowing other people's equipment in order to do landscaping, cut people's lawns and things like that. He had to borrow other people's equipment because he didn't have the money to buy his own equipment. But when he started tithing and being faithful in it and honoring the Lord with it, one day he was mowing someone's lawn, and after he was done, the neighbor came to him and said, "Hey, I have some equipment I want to sell. You want to come take a look at it?" And he said, "Sure." So they're going on the way to wherever he had the equipment, and in the midst of him walking to wherever he had it, he turns around and he's like, "You know what? I think I should just give it to you." And so he ended up giving him the equipment instead of selling it. And then he said, I can't remember the time frame, but then after that, he got blessed with even more equipment. More and more equipment came back, and he said that he had more equipment than he needed. Why? Because he decided to honor the Lord. That's an awesome testimony, and shows you proof that his word works. When you do what he's commanded you to do, when you honor the Lord and you put him first place, no matter what your circumstances and whatever they may be, and you decide to go ahead and sacrifice or whatever, really it's not a sacrifice for all that the Lord has done for us. Nothing should be a sacrifice for us. Nothing really can compare to what Jesus sacrificed for us. But even still, it's like, even though if you look in the natural and you may not have, you think you may not have enough, but when you honor the Lord despite your circumstances, he will reward you. And his word says that when you bring your tithes and offerings into the storehouse, see that I will now open up the windows of heaven and pour you out such a blessing that there is not room enough to receive. And that testimony of his was a perfect example of not having room enough to receive, because he ended up having more equipment than he needed. And so what does that mean? Then he had to find a place to store it. Either he had to find a place to store it with the equipment that he actually didn't need, or he could use it as seed and give it to somebody else. So when you're a doer of the word without grumbling and complaining, and you make sure that whatever it is that you do, even if you don't think it's necessarily important, every little thing that you do, if you do it with a heart attitude and you're doing it for the Lord, you will have the favor of God, and he is with you. Amen.
Amen. Yes,
Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Come on, you guys. Y'all saw that testimony. I know some of y'all weren't here, but we actually showed that testimony. Come on, guys. The guy, I don't think so. Listen, some of y'all can't understand what she just said. This guy, he used to borrow a lawnmower to cut people's grass. He didn't even own his own lawnmower. And he was a tither, and he repented because he stopped tithing. He understood, number one, he was in sin because he was robbing God of his tithe. The Bible says the tithe is God's. It's not yours. And when you don't tithe, you're taking what belongs to God and using it for yourself. That's stealing. And when he repented, listen, he was borrowing a lawnmower to cut somebody's grass, and a stranger said, I want to give you a trailer filled with lawn equipment, a riding lawnmower, and every thousands of dollars worth of business equipment, because he decided to obey God. The reason she told you guys that testimony is because God will do the same thing for you. Amen. So you should be getting excited about this if you actually believe this. Amen. Get excited about the word. These things we're sharing is for you, for your benefit. That's supernatural. When I hear stuff like that, I'm like, come on, Jesus. Dude, let's see it happen for me, God. Come on, get excited. Let your faith arise.
Yes, Lord.
All right? Come on, this is the River Church today. We're not in Catholic Church, Presbyterian Church.
Amen.
Come on, we're alive.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's an amazing testimony, guys. If y'all want to see it again, go. What, you remember what week that was? 2 weeks ago. Go on the church website and pull up the offering message. And the guy was like, and it kept coming more and more and more and more. God kept doing even more than he could ever think. You know why? Because he acknowledged his wrong and he put his trust in God. And today, you hear, she told that testimony, if you've not been tithing, again, what is the